Hello and thanks for joining me again. We're going to look through some of the ASX sectors and the weekly charts. First one's the parent index. This is the S&P ASX 200, also known as the XJO. That's the ticker code for it. This is a slightly wider view and you can see the chart's looking a little messy now. Price was in a good uptrend back here, reached its high, came back up and tried to challenge the highs again here and again here, but it wasn't able to. This was where tensions started to occur between Russia moving into Ukraine, and prices moved roughly sideways ever since. Now if we move in a little bit, if we look at this bar here with a very high volume, this bar occurred when Russia started moving across the border to Ukraine, I think. And it's quite instructive. You can see buying came in off these lows to here. This is the close. And each time price came back to this level, buying support came in. Price was unable to make new highs and traded within this range. This week, prices accelerated lower, only on average volume. Spreads probably wide, and that's telling you something straight away. If that was excessive volume, I would expect some sort of reversal. For instance, look here, prices closed off its low on strong volume, well above average, and price has reversed. This time we're only on average volume, so that's pretty much saying this was just selling. There was no anomaly. And the wide spread on average volume is telling you that there was very few buyers in the market. There was more sellers than buyers, and price had to stretch lower in order to find enough buyers to satisfy the sellers. This is an ominous warning. Price is in the old buying support zone. Whether it will hold or not is another question altogether. But there was no real buying support move in this week like there was previously on this bar and on this bar and on this bar. There was buying support come in within this zone. It doesn't appear there's buying support this time. So I would expect price to continue lower next week, and we'll see if some buying support does emerge closer to the lows. It's a concern. It's vulnerable at the moment. Okay, remembering that zone, move to the next chart. This is the mid caps. I'll mark that zone in again. You can see this is where the buying support came in previously that we looked at, and this time prices dropped through the bottom of the old buying support zone and price has not held. Volume was just a fraction above average, spread was wide. So once again, there was very few buyers in the market, and that's caused price to break through the bottom of the previous buying zone. You can see it was vulnerable here, but just enough buying support emerged to get price back up. Price was not able to break out the top of the old buying zone, represented by the close of this bar. Price is vulnerable, no doubt about it. Price is vulnerable. There's not enough buyers in the market. They've all stepped back. Looking at the small ordinaries. Here's the buying zone again. The previous buying zone. You can see this time prices dropped completely out previously and only been able to push up to the lows of the range and have not been able to resume a position back inside the old buying support zone. And prices broken below the lows of where previous support came in. This market is even more vulnerable than the larger two. Now we're looking at the financials. You can see the price has broken below previous support this week. If you were putting in that buying zone like we've looked at in the previous two, there it is there, and price is closed below it. Volume is a little above average. There was no close off the low, so at this point we're unable to suggest there was any buying support emerge. Looking at the waves on this chart, although they're not marked, you see price moving higher here, but volumes moving lower. And then as price moved lower, volumes increased. And then as price tried to move higher, volumes reduced. There was no actual selling pressure, particularly in here. There was some here. It wasn't excessive and price was attempting to hold on. But you can see this week, selling pressure has emerged, serious selling pressure. Buyers have stepped back. Possibly the reason for that is some change fundamentally in the financials market, which we won't necessarily go into here, but there's been some changes fundamentally in the market which is likely to put the financial sector under pressure, the margins under pressure for a period of time. And because of that, there's been some profit taking emerge, and you can see the result. Lots of selling pressure, almost no buyers, forcing price to stretch lower in order to find sufficient buyers to satisfy the sellers. That was a serious issue this week, and I would expect price to continue lower next week. There might be a little rise in response, and then price continue lower again. At some point, value will be seen again in this sector. It's easily the largest ASX sector. There just may be a period of time for adjustment to take place while these fundamental issues work their way through the market. Now the miners, this is the ASX Metals and Mining Index. The lows of the range are here. Price was stepping higher, like this. Price has been stuck in this range for a little period of time. This is the range I'm talking about here. There was a brief attempt to move higher last week, and that was failed because of the weakness across the ASX last week. Price moved lower in response and then closed back pretty much in the middle of the range, right in the middle of the range. So this is the market showing resilience. It's not particularly weak, but it's not particularly strong. And the resilience that was shown this week was probably admirable considering the weakness that the ASX overall saw. Now the Asx Gold market, which is also showing some resilience. It doesn't really want to move lower. Here's the lows of the range down here. This is the recent lows or the previous low. This is where we're expecting resistance to be at the moment. Price has been trading in this range for a few weeks now. It was weaker this week, closing at the 6,000 level, almost adjacent to the previous low, and it's holding on. It attempted to break lower and sufficient support came in for price to hold on at the lows. It doesn't really want to go lower. It is showing resilience. The market's not strong. Friday night, after close of trade on this market, gold was higher, so I would expect some sort of push higher next week. I'm not sure exactly how strong it'll be. This market does follow the overseas gold price pretty closely, so expect a little rise early next week, and then we'll see what gold does, and in response what the Asx Gold market does. It is showing resilience. It's done fairly well. It doesn't want to go lower, but when gold goes lower, it's forced to. The Asx Energy Market has been our strongest sector for quite some time. Quite a bit of buying support and accumulation occurred down here, and you had the breakout, and then price went through a period of reaccumulation here and a breakout. And you can see price again over the last 2 weeks has broken out again. This market's easily the strongest. There was just a period of consolidation through here. The market's accelerated higher on only slightly above average volume. The close off the high was probably some profit taking by shorter term traders this week. I wouldn't take too much concern about it. You might find price does drift a little lower early next week and just test for supply, and then it will respond depending on how much supply is drawn out. The market's been really strong. It may consolidate sideways if some supply is drawn out. It's not particularly weak at all. You can see that on the chart. It's the strongest sector in the ASX at the moment. I would expect a test for supply early. If supply is drawn out, some consolidation sideways. If not much supply is drawn out, an attempt to push higher again. Healthcare has looked like it was accumulating for a period of time through here. I've been calling this as an accumulation zone for quite some time, but with the pressure on the ASX at the moment, with the ASX moving lower, there's no catalyst for a push higher. Market's been consolidating sideways, pretty much marking time, waiting for an opportunity to move higher, but nothing's happened. After a certain period of time, the market may not continue higher. Some will see opportunity lost and may move to other sectors. It's a concern that this has gone on for almost 20 weeks. A normal accumulation, if you were to put a rough figure on it, would be about 12 weeks, perhaps 15 at the most. With 20 weeks now, some people will be choosing to take their money elsewhere. So you might find that this has been some selling in here, just quietly reducing the size of their positions and perhaps moving to another sector because it's almost taking too long. The fact that price continues sideways suggests that not everyone's getting out, but there's no catalyst to move higher. Markets are rolling over. This market may not break out. We'll have to wait and see. The last sector is the industrials, who, along with the healthcare market, appeared to be under some form of accumulation here. Price was able to break out here, and there was a consolidation just after the breakout. Price moved higher again, and it's pushed up to be effectively adjacent to the previous highs. This was the weakness this week, coming in nowhere near as strong as the parent index. It's thwarted any efforts to move higher for sure, and this market may only move sideways. It definitely would like to move higher, I think, but without the catalyst being there and the overall weakness in the ASX, it may be forced to move lower or sideways at best. So the opportunity to move higher may have been lost. We'll have to wait and see. It's unlikely it'll be able to show very much strength if the overall market is rolling over at the lows or moving sideways at best. So you might find that at best this market can move sideways. It may bang itself up against the old highs like this, but I don't think so. I think it'll be testing these lows here. There is good support through here, so I don't think the market's going to really tip over too badly unless the overall market does. Okay. This is the ASX 200, the XJO, and you can see it's looking a little vulnerable at the highs now. I would expect that the congestion through here will be where some possible support will come in initially. That's going to be in this level, just above 6,500, and if that's taken out at some point in the future, you can see now the obvious congestion zone below that is here. That's the next support zone that you would expect through there. So you're looking at just above 6,500 or adjacent to 6,000. They're your two zones of previous support that you would expect some support to come in if price really does break down. Okay, thanks for your time. Hopefully that was worthwhile. See ya.